So today I'm going to be making some tomato soup. I've been craving it for a few days, so last time I went to the store I got a whole bunch of tomatoes so that I could make a bunch of it and freeze it so that I can have it with lunches and stuff like that. And of course we're pairing it with grilled cheese because how can you have tomato soup without grilled cheese? That's my question. So first of all, the recipe I'm using I found online from Gimme Some Oven, and I will link that in the description for you to try out yourself if you want. But yeah, I'm gonna get started by washing my tomatoes and then chopping them up. So right now I have the oven on 450, and I'm just gonna like quarter these tomatoes to get them roasting in there. Now, I know I'm making soup again, but I promise I'm not only planning on making soup on this little channel. It's just kind of what I was feeling, so I'm going for it, and then we'll see what happens next. I don't know. I like these little ones on the vine, kind of more easy to deal with. I wish I had one of those little scoopy things. Those are amazing. Okay, that's pretty full, but I'm gonna go with it for this tray, and then I have another pan. I am doubling this recipe, by the way. Here's what we'll do. These. Maybe we'll fit all these. Okay, now that our tomatoes are all chopped, I'm going to spritz them with some olive oil. And then some salt and pepper as well. And now our pepper. I have these cut side up. An arm workout. And they're gonna go into the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes at 450. Okay, now we're going to dice up 2 onions. It doesn't have to be pretty because we're going to merge and blend our whole soup later, so it doesn't matter if it's cut nicely, but it does need to be somewhat even so that they cook evenly. That's the one thing. I'm not a pro at chopping onions, but at least I wore my contacts today, so I'm not going to be crying. This aside. I can hear the tomatoes sizzling already. Let me just check that. I think we're okay. I don't remember if I mentioned it at all, but I am doubling this recipe, and I'm not 100% following it to a T. I'm kind of just looking at the ingredients and the instructions, and then just going for it with some of the quantities, but it's pretty close, I think. So there's our onions. I'm gonna take them over to the stove because all of our next steps are at the stove. Oh no. This is a bad sign. The oven's smoking, so I think some of the juice or one of the tomatoes must have fallen onto the bottom of the oven. I'm gonna investigate and hope that the smoke alarm doesn't go off and wake up my baby.
Huh, honey, what's going on? Why is it so smoky?
I'm cooking! It's unavoidable!
A few minutes later.
Okay, so here's the situation. It's not smoking too bad anymore. Don't look too close in there, it's a little dirty. I decided that this pan is not gonna work for me, so I put most of the rest of the tomatoes in either of these two pans. And then since I don't have any other pans that are deeper like this, ow, I shouldn't have touched that. I just pulled out one of my loaf pans, and we're gonna go with that and hope for the best. Okay, our tomatoes are out of the oven, fresh out. So we're just gonna let them sit here until we're ready for them. Okay, so next what we're gonna do is, I have this pan on here and it's heated up, so I'm going to add some olive oil to the pan. Just gonna eyeball that. Maybe a little more. And then we'll let that heat up before we add in our onions. Then we're gonna let those cook for a little bit before we add in our garlic and also seasonings. Okay, here's our onions. I'm starting to worry if everything's gonna fit in this pot. It's my biggest pot, so let's hope for the best. So this just needs to kind of heat up for about 5 minutes or so before we add in our garlic. Okay, here's our onion situation. I'm going to add in the garlic. I think I did about 10 cloves since I'm doubling the recipe. And we're gonna put in some crushed red pepper flakes. Just a little bit of that because I don't like too much spice. And then some smoked paprika. Just gonna eyeball that. And then I'm also gonna do a little bit of salt and some pepper. And just stir it all up and let that garlic cook for a couple of minutes. Okay, now we're gonna add in some vegetable broth, and I'm just gonna add in this whole 32 ounce. I think that's close to what the recipe calls for if I'm doubling it, but not exactly. I'm not following exacts, if you couldn't tell. Add that in, stir it up a little bit, and I'm going to add in some fresh basil, which smells awesome, by the way. Get in there. So stir that in, and then we are gonna add in our tomatoes next, which I will probably need both hands for, so I might not film that part, but I'm just gonna put those in really quick and then I'll show you. Good news, everything fits. Well, first I'm just gonna kind of let these sit in here for a couple of minutes and cook together, because it probably cooled down quite a bit from putting the broth in, even though the tomatoes are hot too, so that would have helped heat it back up. But we're just gonna let this cook for a few minutes, and then I'm going to immersion blend it. You could also just blend it in a blender if you don't have an immersion blender. One thing to note is that I didn't just put the tomatoes in, I dumped their juices in from the pan as well. Okay, so I just got it back up to boiling, but I turned the heat off so it's not boiling anymore, because I am about to immersion blend it. And I'm really hoping I don't splatter myself with hot soup. So, wish me luck, I guess. Okay, this thing sounds like it's dying. I'm gonna check on it really quick. I guess this is just how it is now. I'm trying to go slow so I don't splash myself. Just a quick side note, I did go ahead and go back and blend all of the soup because the immersion blender just didn't do it for me. I think maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it's just a cheap one or something. I don't know. But the blender worked great. It's a much better texture, no pieces of skin in there and stuff like that. So you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, so it's looking pretty smooth after blending it, so that's good. I think that there's a few tiny little chunks in there that I would have preferred got blended up, but I think that's about all my immersion blender has in it. So let's taste test it, make sure that the seasonings are good. Time to taste and see if it's any good. That definitely needs salt, so I'm gonna add some more salt. Okay, I'm gonna make a grilled cheese for the little one so he can eat here pretty soon. But I've got some butter heated up in that pan, and I'm just gonna put his little grilled cheese sandwich in there and let that brown on both sides, get the cheese heated through, and that'll be that. Okay, I'm just gonna top this with a little bit of heavy cream and a tiny bit of olive oil and maybe some Parmesan. So here is the finished product for the little one's food. Here's this little grilled cheese and its soup. And I'll make myself and my husband a plate as well in a little bit here, but I'm gonna make sure he gets his food because he's pretty hungry. This recipe did end up tasting pretty good, and I'm really glad that I made it. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a cozy day.